are talking to the awesome Dr. Rick Solomon of the Play Project. And I want to start off by showing that I have read through his book. I've had the pleasure of reading through that. And today we're going to talk about something new Dr. Rick has in the works.
Yeah. I've been thinking about, I've been doing developmental pediatrics for 25 years at least. I don't want to go beyond that because it makes me sound old, but, and I've been watching, I've been going from the moment of diagnosis until children graduate from my practice at the age of 18 or 20 or 22. And I've really witnessed the course of life. So I thought it would be really fun and interesting and hopefully valuable if I developed a training called Autism 10 Lessons for the Course of Life and share what I've learned from my family. So that's one thing I thought would be fun to talk about.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that you have learned quite a bit over the years. Like you said, not to age you, but you've seen so many patients. And I know just from my says I feel limited experience while having 3 autistic children, I still, that's only 3. You've had, well, I don't think you want to tell me how many numbers at this rate.
Well, I mean, thousands, really,
yeah.
thousands. So it'd be interesting to talk with you. How old is your oldest?
So we have 4 kids total, but 3 they're autistic. So they are 15, 14, and then 7. And so been through, quite a few different ways of the journey, and each child is still very unique and same genetics and still vastly different stories. Right.
But see, what I found is that you still face very similar issues, and it just really depends on the course that your child takes through life. So, I mean, some children are slower movers, some children are medium movers, some children are faster movers, and each developmental level has its own set of challenges and opportunities and joys. And the other thing is that you're always dealing with the schools, unless you're homeschooling, but even then you're dealing with schooling. And how do you promote? So my general stance is I would call very consistent with a neurodiversity view of life, where we totally accept where the children are at and start from within the child to help them grow and reach their potential, pretty much as you would do with any child. So, I mean, it's completely consistent with, I even almost don't like the politically correct terms of neurodiversity or the neurodivergent individual, because we just accept that everybody's got a different kind of brain, and it doesn't matter because we're going to honor who you are, where you are, when you are, and start there.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's the biggest problem I've seen overall in the education system. It's I mean, the schools, it's all a one size fits all. It's you're this grade, this is what you're supposed to achieve at this level, and then if you don't, you're failing, or if you go too far, well, you're not staying with the course.
And one of my life lessons that I've learned, from my families is that you have to be school savvy. So the lesson is make learning fun, be school savvy.
Yeah, I can see that, because I mean, and we actually, we kind of have now the mixed household on it. Our oldest autistic child, she's still in public school, she's thriving, she's doing great, because academics were never a struggle for her. It's the social skills, the social interactions, where she's just, learning to navigate, where the other 2, especially with the pandemic, the school system just wasn't working for them. And so, each one having completely different problems, but enough that they needed to come home and just have, like you said, that very focus on them as an individual, where they are at, and not worried about what grade level or anything like that. Just, hey, let's learn, let's make learning, like you said, make learning fun.
Right. And the there's a kind of a educational methodology that I've been promoting with my families a lot, and that I call it the stone in the pond, which is a poetic way of saying, you know, when you throw a stone in a pond, you have the central circle, and then the circles ripple out, ripple out, ripple out, ripple out. And for me, that central circle is what the child loves. And so if you start with trains, and then you end up with engineers on the train, and then you end up with the trains on the track, and then you end up going somewhere, and then you have people who get on the train, and then you end up with geography, and then, you know, and like, when did trains begin? And then you can, so if you start with what the child loves and you build out interest, you can pretty much, all knowledge is connected. And so you can, you know, so if you start with a child's interests, then you have what I call, you give your children M&Ms, meaning and motivation.
Yeah, and I've seen that too, because we struggled with Lily, she's the one that's 14, you know, with reading. Reading has always been a struggle, not because she was bad at reading or anything like that, but there weren't topics that she liked that were encouraged at school. And her biggest interest has always been cats, animals from there. And, you know, was bringing her home, she got into this Warrior Cat series, which is, you know, a very big series. I mean, it continued, and she went from barely reading to, you know, putting away a chapter book, you know, entire large chapter book within less than a week, you know, and she just kept going and going. And now she's like, well, there is a new series that's coming out, and there are some different, you know, sub-series, but, you know, she went from reading books that were supposedly not below her grade level and her being behind to now her quite possibly exceeding her peers. There you go. Reading skills, because that's enjoyed it.
That's a perfect example. That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. And you know, you start with the child's interest and you build out. And then, you know, what happens is, you know, I one of my lessons also was, you know, you have to read, you have to learn to read in order to read to learn. And so that typically happens between second and third grade. You know, that's, you know, for kindergarten, first and second, you're learning to read. And then from third grade on, you're reading to learn. And that distinction is very, very important for children on the spectrum, because reading comprehension is always a challenge. It's always a challenge. It's always a challenge. And that's because it requires a lot more complexity in your thinking. And one of the things that I'm always promoting is more complexity. And because that's the growth, that's the cutting edge. And so a lot of parents will come to me and say, my child's a great reader, but he doesn't understand what he's reading. You know, you have hyperlexic, you know, you have like hyperlexic kids. I'll never forget it. I had a kid who was 2 years old, and I was a general pediatrician at the time. And this kid came in at 2 years old and read my immunization schedule. He goes, he looks at the chart like this. He goes, meningococcal. I just like, wow, you know.
Oh yeah, I've seen it. So yeah, and that's what the kind of the joy of seeing, you know, each of my children having their own unique ways about them, because, you know, our oldest, she's always been a reader. I mean, she was like I was. That's kind of her escape world. And, you know, she'd read well beyond her level, but yeah, it's that subtext. It's going back and talking about the story and what did those characters actually mean by that.
Bingo.
Learning the depth of it, because that's really what conversation is in general. I mean, when we're speaking to each other.
Once you can read to learn, okay, then you can also read people. Okay, you can begin to really focus. You can really begin to be successful in social skills. The same intelligence that it takes to understand plot and character and setting and description. I'm a huge fan of literacy. And this might be a good time to mention it's a free ebook. It's called Autism, Literacy, and Emotional Intelligence. Okay, and it's part of that series on our website. But this is free. You can download. You don't have to buy anything from our website. You can just get it free. But it's called How to Help Children with Autism or Autistic Children Love Books, and it's how can you use books from whatever level the child's at to engage the child in fun social interactions.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's always a great skill. And yeah, it's also starting to think outside the box. We're all, we get into a pattern that we want to say, oh, here's the book that you learned, see Jane run, you see, you go through it, but sometimes that's not an interest. And sometimes you have to get creative. I mean, I remember silly thing doing in the bathroom as a kid, but I'd sit there and grab a soap bottle and read all the stuff on the back of it. Just to, because there was something there and I was like, what does this say? How do I say this right? But goofy stuff, and realized like it's still reading no matter what style, whether it's a comic or it's a newspaper or
right.
The manual to some Lego set. It's
or these graphic novels, or anime, which is really so popular,
Oh yeah, it's that's something I had to learn. I was having to learn the difference between manga and anime and what all that meant. Like my kids are telling me, and I'm like, okay, I'm officially old now. Which one's what? When they're explaining to you how to do stuff, you've hit that age, and it's like, oh man, they've got me here. But
yeah, I know they know more than you do. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but then it's neat at the same time because my 7-year-old has there are still similar interests between my 7-year-old and my 15-year-old. They all like Pokemon, there's Marvel, there's Sonic, there's things that, it's socially acceptable to be in your 50s and like comics, and so it's a conversation like my 7-year-old, I mean, he could tell you anything and everything about the Sonic world. And I grew up in the generation that Sonic was created. And yet there's things he tells me that I'm like, I had no clue what that was. But he'll come up with random facts, and that's his interest.
Well, there's a new Sonic movie out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I watched it. Yeah.
So. Oh, did you? Yeah. He's waiting because we did offer to try the movie theater, and he said he wanted to wait till I got home because he's decided he doesn't want. He wants to watch Sonic. He does not want to watch it in the theater.
to because of COVID or just because
I think it's a little everything. It was sensory overload, and he does somewhat like the theaters, but some of them are louder than others, and you can't always guess. And then just people. He was during COVID, he was the easiest to transition because he had no desire to go out. It didn't matter, vaccinated and masked, he still was like, no, I want to stay home. And he didn't want to go. We had to do the opposite with him on working with him to get out of the house. Whereas like my teenagers, we had to be like, oh, we got to work on staying in more. He was like, no, I'm good. I'll stay right here.
I had kids that thrived during COVID, but I think I had a lot more kids who didn't.
The regression, there was a lot of regression. I mean, that was a big struggle going through COVID, especially, my son was starting kindergarten when they, the year that, we walked into a school year with complete virtual teaching. And trying to get any kindergarten first grader to sit down. Totally. I don't know how any of these teachers did it. I mean, it's crazy.
They didn't do it they'll tell you they didn't do it.
They tried their best.
They tried, but they lost a lot of kids. Right. I mean, there's some kids that'll do fine, but as soon as you stop traditional teaching methods, you're going to lose a certain number of children.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my oldest, she thrived on it just because she could turn her screen off and she was happy with just listening to teacher because she's very auditory processing. So she was great with it. But the other ones, it was too much because then you go from having the ability to put your headphones on and mute some of the noise to now you can't change any of the noise. And there's 30 kids on the screen all moving around. And
well, school is boring enough,
Yeah, on a normal day. I pretty much went, before we decided to pull him out and decide to go ahead and homeschool, I did about 6 weeks of kindergarten too, because he was not sitting still. I mean, he pretty much had to sit on my lap in order to do school. And I felt awful for the teachers because not, it wasn't their fault, but they were learning just the same as us. And so it gave me a new appreciation. I already appreciated
Well,
teachers, but
well,
that was a new one.
well, yeah, this is one of the paradoxes that I've learned too from my families is that when you're not ready to read, they're pushing your face in it. And then as you get older and you actually become capable of reading, like at age 11 or 12, they stop trying to teach you. So there's an age paradox. It's like when you're young and you can't read, they focus on it. When you're older and you can read, they think you're too old.
Yeah.
And so I tell parents, when your child is ready to read is not necessarily age dependent. I'm so against ageism. And I think this is the other thing about schools is that I got kids who are 10, but they're really ready to work in the first grade level. And it would be so nice if they could join a first grade classroom and get the lessons, you know, and then leave and then go to their resource room or whatever. But, you know, it shouldn't be about age. There's, like you say, it's so rigid. It's so rigid, you know.
And it's too, yeah, that's one thing I've learned. It's with the homeschooling thing, you know, there's so many different resources in there were when I have a younger brother. He's, I think 25 now. He's not gonna love me for not remembering how old he is. But back when he was homeschooled, completely different time. Where now we have all these different, you know, resources available. And so one's called Outschooled I started in, and they just have a general age range.
Yeah.
That, you know, it might be 7 to 13 or something, but it's a specific topic and it doesn't matter how old you are, just what you're needing to learn and that topic. And I love that because that's what kids need. They need to learn where they're at. Well,
I think there comes so I'm a developmentalist in my view of childhood. And I think that there comes a time. So I have like a simple screening test to know whether or not your child is getting ready to read. And all you have to do is ask them 2 questions. Number 1, what did you have for breakfast? Okay, no prompts, no multiple choices. Just tell me what you ate for breakfast. And the second one is, what do you do when you're thirsty? So if your child answers those questions easily, and they are socially fairly connected, then they are getting ready to read. And I go through this in that ebook because I think what we're doing to our children is we're forcing them to do stuff that they're not ready to do developmentally. And you have to respect their developmental level if you really want to connect, because otherwise it just becomes rote or it becomes boring or it becomes stressful, and it creates a lot of anxiety when you're asking children to do things that they can't do, and then school becomes miserable, and now you've just ruined learning. You know, now learning becomes associated with stress and misery, and I divide the learning world into 3 domains: easy, kind of hard, and too hard. And most kids, most typically developing children, neurotypical children, find school pretty easy. At worst, they find it kind of hard. And then sometimes they find it too hard, and that means you literally can't do it. And so if you can find the easy to kind of hard learning realms, then your child will learn and they'll enjoy learning. So, you know, one of my lessons is make learning fun and be savvy about school. And that's one of the key points within that lesson, I think.
And yeah, that's the key thing, is make it fun. Because I mean, there are things that, you know, we wind up doing now. We have to, like you said, there was so much anxiety built around the whole process of learning. We had to unlearn that anxiety and the stresses on school with both my youngest two are now homeschooled, because they were so stressed out. And if you said we're going to learn or we're school time and used any of those key words that they associated with school, they would shut down.
Exactly.
So I had to get creative. And I mean, one day it was last summer, and I wound up with, the hornworms, the green caterpillars on your tomatoes. And it had, what was wasp eggs all over it. But man, Walker thought that was a cool thing. And we were talking about it. I'm like, well, let's go look it up. Because at that time, I really wasn't sure what kind of parasite was on it. All I knew was there was a lot, Right. And so he went through, and he was happy to get it off the plant to look at it. Then we looked up, well, this is the information on it. And he became so enamored. And it was something that was, if we were in school, if he were learning that in school, he wouldn't be learning that until high school. But it was something that interested him.
Learning should be fun.
Yeah.
And the other point within that lesson, if you will, that life lesson, is to be project oriented. And so with a hands-on project orientation, like planting a garden or studying wasps' nests, or actually going on a train and then, making a map and seeing where being project oriented is so much more fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much more fun.
It gives you an experience to go with the learnings. You're completely, enveloped in the learning. It's not just, oh, here's something on a book. No, I love a book, don't get me wrong. But like for them, that learning process, they're involved in it. They have a memory. Like you said, they went to the train station, they drew the map, they, explored the caboose and what it all looked like.
Right,
It's a full experience. It's not just, this is what I learned because mom taught it to me. It's here's the whole environment. That's right.
It's multi-sensory, and you can put together a really nice project, so I think I encourage parents. The other thing I encourage parents to do, another point in the kind of the schooling lesson, is to use your summers. Don't let your summers go. I do believe in the 3 R's. I do think that reading, writing, and arithmetic are basic things that children do need to learn in order to really ultimately become more academic. And so you do want to focus on those. And there are fun ways to learn all those too. Because
absolutely. One thing we did when the girls were younger and more, it was one of the things I discovered that wound up becoming more of a learning thing than I realized it was going to be, but geocaching. I don't know if you've ever done that.
Oh yeah. I love geocaching. I love that.
And so that was our big thing, because I would look for, especially when the girls were little. I had 3 girls, within a 5-year age span of each other. So I was like, well, let's go to ones that have bigger things that they can, they get the excitement of the play thing, but then they have to look at coordinates, because they're looking at my phone, they're looking at the compass on it, and they're having to learn their directions, and they're having to, think about the clues and all this stuff. And then, and then we would always look at stuff around us. So in the park, what bird nest did you find?
Well, it makes you observant. It makes you observant.
Yeah. And so we did that during the summer, and we found so many places that we never would have found. But it wasn't, and you can pay for a subscription that, but there's free versions of it. They're easy free ones. And you just learn new places that you wouldn't discover. It doesn't have to cost anything except for just getting out and about.
Isn't there a Pokemon Go?
Yes. Also? Oh yeah. That's one of those funny ones I was not expecting, because Walker was actually our youngest. He got to a point where his anxiety got so high that we didn't have to go a little bit of medication, but it got so high that he didn't want to leave the house, because you had the COVID thing on top of everything. Already having anxiety. And so we would try to even take a walk in the neighborhood. And the second he realized he was outside of our property or our one neighbor's property, he would run back home. Yeah. And so it was my oldest, that's one that's now almost 20, but she thought about Pokemon Go because he liked Pokemon. And
that's brilliant.
She showed him, and so as soon as he saw something he could interact with, he made it around the neighborhood before he realized what had happened. And then he was okay with leaving because of Pokemon, and it's just a fun way to do it.
So let me mention 2 webinars, both of which are free on our website, in our store, on anxiety. So one, because you've been talking about anxiety. So one is called, it's basically anxiety part 1 and then anxiety part 2. Anxiety part 1 is about how to prevent anxiety. and not to cross over, and how to start early in helping your children become anxiety tolerant, more resilient, how to promote resilience. And then the second talk is more about once your child has anxiety and OCD, how do you deal with it? So it's based on, research, and all my stuff is based on research and evidence. And I just bring the evidence to bear with practical advice on how to help your children become more resilient.
We have some really great topics today. But if you want to go ahead and let everybody know where to go to find all your information and about some of the deals you had going on lately.
Yeah, well, we have a lovely little store. I call it a store. I mean, we don't sell things. We sell information on there. My book. I have, we have this ebook on literacy, which is free. We have a special deal on my book, the parent guide for the play project, which we didn't talk much about the play project, but it's an early intervention program. And that parent guide is a complete summary. And then comes the ebook on how to help your children love books, all 3 books for $29, which is a great deal. And then there's 2 webinars, on anxiety that are free on the website. For basically, it's a continuation of April Autism Month, So yeah, so I think that, and then one last thing I should mention just before we go that's really important is that the play project, which is an early intervention parent coaching model, does have play consultants available online. So it's called teleplay. And if anybody in the world wants to learn the play project and have somebody coach them, they can actually get contact with that person through our website. I have nothing financial. These are people we train, but I don't get anything for it. This is just to help families access really good, skilled clinicians, coaches. We call them play project consultants, who do the play project, which is an evidence-based, based on research, high fidelity training program for parents. So if you get the book, you get the parent guide, you get the teleplay, you can get started with intervention for your young children. Doesn't have to be young or old, but I mean, it's focused more on early intervention. And you can get started with a evidence-based program. So I'm really excited about these for families. And like I said, and then just check out our website. We've got webinars, we have workshops, all the time. And we're really trying to reach out to parents now. So thank you so much for, hosting me and allowing me to talk about, what we can do to help the children and the families. I just, these children have so much potential. If you do it right, you can really help the children, and you can bring parents closer together with their children, and you can help the children make progress, which is, the 2 big wishes that all parents have. So
exactly, yeah, and I absolutely loved it because I mean, like I said, beginning of the show, I've read through your book, and people can see it's a good sized book, but it's impactful. It's not a scary read. It's not like you're jumping big. I mean, I just love that, you walked everybody through the entire process from,
right.
prior to diagnosis through the play project, learning, different things as a family. Like you said, it's putting the parents, as well as, yes, you have coaches, but making the parents the educator.
Well, I always say that my book is three books in one. One is the beginning of what you need to know. The second book is really on the play project, and the third book is on behavior issues and how to parent the child. So it's really 3 books, in one, but it's about one family who actually goes through the whole process from diagnosis to kindergarten. And each chapter is a visit with me in dialogue with the family, working on how to help their child. And so, I like to think of it as kind of like there's a mystery in every visit, and then there's a solution at the end. So I hope people like it. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's a great read. We'll definitely put it up here on screen too for everybody to see at the end. Well,
okay.
If you want to stick around, I'll skip this part out. But I'm gonna stop recording. But I'll say it bye. But you can stay on right afterwards too.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So thank you guys, everyone, for watching today and joining Dr. Rick and I as we had this great conversation. I encourage you to check out all his great information. We'll see you next week.